You know that moment at the dinner table when you said something, really said something, and the conversation just continued, like you hadn't spoken at all. No one disagreed. No one dismissed you. They just kept talking about something else. And you sat there wondering if you'd actually said it out loud. That feeling, that specific, quiet erasure, that's what this is about. Not the dramatic childhoods, not the obvious neglect, but the subtle, confusing kind of growing up where everything looked fine from the outside, and yet something inside you learned, very early, to make yourself smaller, to need less, to stop expecting to be truly met by the people who were supposed to see you most clearly. Here's the thing most people never get told. You didn't grow up unloved, you grew up unseen. And those two things are not the same, but they can feel identical from the inside. In her book, Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, Lindsay C. Gibson makes a point that genuinely changed how I understand my own history. She describes emotionally immature parents not as monsters or villains, but as people who were simply unable to tune into their children's inner world. Not unwilling, unable. There's a difference. And somehow, that difference makes it both easier and harder to process. Easier, because it removes the blame. Harder, because it removes the clean story. Think about what a child actually needs, beyond food, shelter, and safety. They need to be witnessed. They need someone to look at them. Some theros we five. Not at their grades, not at their behavior, not at the version of them that's easiest to manage, but at them. The real, complicated, feeling, confused, joyful, scared version. When that doesn't happen consistently, the child doesn't think, my parent is failing me. The child thinks, something must be wrong with me. Because children are egocentric by nature. They are the center of their own universe. So if connection keeps breaking down, they assume they are the problem. And that assumption follows them for decades. Here's where things get interesting. Gibson talks about a specific coping style that develops in these environments. She calls them internalizers. 6 children who turn everything inward, who become very good at sensing other people's moods, who learn to manage the emotional temperature of a room before they've even learned long division. These kids become adults who are perceptive, empathetic, often high-achieving. But underneath all of that, they are exhausted, because they have been working their entire lives to earn visibility through usefulness, to be seen by being needed. What you were calling love had, somewhere along the way, become performance. And the two had been tangled together so long you couldn't tell them apart anymore. Think about this. When someone gives you a genuine compliment, is your first instinct to receive it 6 or to deflect it? When someone asks how you're really doing, do you answer honestly, 6? Or do you give the version that won't burden them? When you achieve something, do you feel proud, 6? Or do you immediately look around for someone to confirm that it counts? These aren't personality quirks. These are survival strategies that outlived their context. Gibson describes it as growing up in a household where the emotional connection was always slightly out of reach. Not absent 6, just inconsistent enough that you never felt safe to stop trying. That's the cruel part. If it had been entirely absent, you might have grieved it and moved on. But it was just present enough to keep you hoping. And still, you kept trying. There's a specific kind of grief that lives in adults who grew up this way. Not the grief of losing someone. The grief of slowly realizing that what you were waiting for was never coming 6, and that you had quietly organized your entire emotional life around that weight. That's not a small thing to recognize. That's years. That's choices. That's the relationships you've walked away from because they didn't need you enough. That's the ones you stayed in too long because being needed felt like being loved. But here's the turn, and this is the part that actually matters. Understanding this doesn't mean you're broken. It means you were adaptive. You learned to survive in a specific emotional environment, and your nervous system did exactly what it was designed to do. It protected you. The problem is just that the environment changed and the strategy didn't. The path forward isn't about confronting your parents. It's not about assigning blame or rewriting history. It's about something quieter and more personal. Learning to be a witness to yourself. Learning to take up the space that was never offered to you. Learning that your inner life is real and valid and worthy of attention, not because you've earned it, but because you exist. Gibson frames this as a kind of reparenting, not of your parents, of yourself. And it starts with something almost embarrassingly simple: noticing what you feel before you decide what to do about it. Not fixing, not managing, not performing, just noticing. That small act, turning attention inward instead of outward, is quietly revolutionary for someone who spent their whole childhood scanning the room for other people's needs. So here's the question I want to leave you with, and I'm not asking it lightly. If you stopped waiting to be seen by the people who couldn't see you, and started genuinely seeing yourself instead, what would you finally let yourself want? Sit with that. There's no quick answer, but the fact that you're asking it means something has already shifted. If this resonated with you, Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents by Lindsay C. Gibson is worth your time, not as a diagnosis, but as a mirror. And if this video helped you feel a little less alone in something you've never quite been able to name, consider subscribing to Sparkpage. There's more where this came from.